Okay, everybody, DJ Psycho Eddie here. Welcome back, MyNightOut Radio. For those of you who had the twitches, and we were actually twitching over here because that's the first time most of us have heard that song. I reviewed it earlier, but I forgot about the couple of moments where they had the break in sound. I think Tourette's was kicking in at that point. But that was Korazik, name of the song, Spellbound. Tonight we are talking about food porn. Cannot talk about food porn without everybody's favorite food porn star, Julia Child. That's right. I had to go there right off the bat because everyone says that she is the originator. She's one of the first. She is one of the first, but she is not the first person to cook on TV. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I was always watching these cooking shows, and at about the same time, there was also the Frugal Gourmet, which I'll get into in a minute. But these people that started, she wrote a book. Julia Child wrote a book, Mastering the Art of French Cooking. PBS in Boston, WGBH, I believe it is. They were the ones that actually got her on the air initially, 1960s, and they brought her on. The name of the show, The French Chef. Then she went on with Julia Child and Company, Julia Child and More Company, Dinner at Julia's. There's a few other places, a few other shows that she was on. But a lot of people don't know the other side of Julia Child. Neutral Nation has a song, Julia Child Was a Spy. I was going to play it tonight, but there's a couple of F-bombs in it, so I couldn't play it. But Julia Child actually was in the OSS. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Here's your conspiracy theories in action. She worked directly, top secret researcher, working directly with the head of the OSS in the Emergency Rescue Equipment section. And she kept track of over 10,000 officers through the OSS. Now, how that translates into cooking? Actually, that's how she got her name. Her real name was Julia Carolyn McWilliams. She married Paul Childs. That's how she got the name Julia Childs. But she went on, and her whole goal was to make cooking simple, French cooking simple for the masses.
Okay.
About the same time that I was watching Julia, you had French chef, the Frugal Gourmet, Jeff Smith. He was a Greek Orthodox minister who also had a deli in Tacoma, Washington. He started in the mid-70s, 73, 74. Then in the 80s, he went on to WTTW in Chicago, where the TV show, The Frugal Gourmet, actually initiated. He got picked up by PBS, and then he went nationwide as well. He did 14 years of TV shows on PBS, along with Julia. She was from 63 to, almost 1980s, wow. Mid-80s. There's a lot of really weird stories between just those two without getting into the more modern ones. Like Julia Child's kitchen, she had to have custom made because she was extremely tall. At the time, she was 6'4", which Tony can tell you, they don't make things for people that tall.
Especially not kitchens for women.
That's exactly my excuse for not doing the dishes at home.
The kitchen, the counters are too low. Well, actually, she had her kitchen made where everything was about 6 inches higher than standard, so she could be comfortable and look like she was a normal size on TV. Jeff Smith, he did a whole bunch of books, a whole series of Frugal Gourmet, Cooks with Wine, Cooks Italian. He cooks the things you should have gotten recipes from your parents and stuff like that. Unfortunately, Julia, she retired. She helped other people. Jeff Smith, there was a little bit of controversy. When you're doing really well, people have to cut you down.
Right.
7 gentlemen came across with abuse allegations, and that's all they talk about. They don't say what kind of abuse.
Just generic abuse.
Generic abuse. 6 of them were because were minors when they worked at his deli in Tacoma, Washington. One was later on. Yeah, there was a settlement. No charges were filed. But, that just goes to show you these people were getting to the level where people felt the need to cut them down.
Right.
That happens with a lot of stars late, even of late. If you get too big for your britches.
Freak, you don't even have to get to that level. That happens around here.
Oh, I know. I mean, just look around. There are people, they'll make up a story just to get a paycheck. Hell, you want to make up a story about me? I'll own it, unless it's a real sick one, and then I'll definitely own it. But you got these people that wanted to cut him down, and they did. That's what took him off the air. But he was still, after he was taken off PBS because they couldn't have him on the air, he still continued to write books. Mm-hmm. He still continued to. He was actually a philanthropist, helping people get businesses, restaurants started, and he helped them out. And do you even remember these shows, or am I?
No, I remember the names of them.
Oh.
Yes, they did exist. These are not figments of your imagination.
Well, I hope not, because a lot of people imagine them with me. But that's where your Emeril Lagasse's and all your whole Food Network, Food TV, the Cooking Channel, all of that sprouted from these two people. They were the biggest names at the time, 70s and 80s. They were it when it came to cooking.
Now, I will notice, since you mentioned those other shows that have followed them, now there were a couple of shows back then, and they were successful.
Yep.
But now it seems like, I lose track of time, but what would you say, in the last decade or two, that these cooking shows, this interest in cooking porn has exploded?
Well, it follows suit with the actual porn industry. In the 70s and 80s, porn was very difficult to find. Mm-hmm. You had a few big names, but the rest of it pretty much went by the wayside because you focused on the two main players in this genre.
Right.
Like if you were going through the 70s and 80s porn, the name Psyco came up, John Holmes, everybody. These are household names.
Right.
You don't admit to it, but these are household names.
Just like the magazines. There was a handful of magazines that...
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back into the 80s and 90s, there was Yan Can Cook, the Asian gentleman, who is still going around cooking. He is nonstop. Up until 2012, he was doing public appearances. Mm-hmm. And that, I mean, this is 20, 30 years after his TV show came off the air. Fast forward to now, you have these people that are literally reaching superstar status. People that they have to hire security to go to the grocery store to apply their wares, to do what they do. And to me, that I just had to research this and see where people were coming from. And this is the format that pretty much everyone now follows.
Right.
This is the food. This is how you cook it. Let's do the glamour shot. Spritz it with a little bit of oil so it looks all nice and shiny.
Right.
Everything's golden brown, delicious. Go on to the next dish.
Right. It's specifically food porn, though.
Oh yeah.
I mean, now there's the other kinds of pornography. Yes, the internet's home for sexual porn and all the other architectural porn and disaster porn. And
there's even weld porn. People that you
right.
laugh. People that run such a perfect bead when they're welding that it's actually art to look at. It's amazing.
Oh, absolutely. But my distinction here is that food porn seems to be enjoying a bigger explosion of popularity than the other categories.
Because some of it is the seedy underbelly or it's genre specific. Like I was just speaking of weld porn. If you're not a welder, if you're not into the steel trades, what do you care about weld porn?
But break it down to the most basic level. Everybody's got to eat.
They do. So I'm just wondering if the explosion in food porn, is it due to the proliferation of foods available, to the people that can buy it and cook it and afford it,
the diversity.
or is it kind of wish fulfillment, kind of like, when we were 13-year-olds in our bedroom, we got the sexual porn and got off on that. Is it possibly because a lot of people these days can't afford decent food? They can't afford to eat in restaurants.
Or they're on a diet.
Well, if they're on a diet, they have less to worry about. I'm thinking of people not on a diet that are basically, can't afford to eat these meals, and they're just looking at these meals on the TV and
wishful thinking.
Lustfully
looking after the pot roast. Yeah,
honestly, exactly. Seriously,
that I think is what plays a very big part in their success and how they went out. Is in Julia Child's case, whatever she made duck confit, or she made duck l'orange, or she made anything with pretty much any of her recipes that she did on her show was something you would not ordinarily have.
And recipes like that, I'm never going to eat that. I'm never going to cook that. But chances are I'd still watch the show.
Oh, yeah.
Right, because you're not going to jump on, back in the day, Tracy Lords either. You're not going to have
Tracy
that.
Lords today, maybe.
Well,
Yes.
Tracy Lords back then, if you jumped on it, there's a whole legal ramification. But
Right, but that's my point. Is we're lusting after this unattainable food, like we lusted after the unattainable men or women.
or it's something almost like goal setting for foodies. Speaking as a foodie, it's a goal. I want to go and get the best possible dim sum in Boston, Chinatown. I want to,
Right.
I want to have
Right, that makes sense.
that $50 hamburger somewhere in New York, or go down to Luger's restaurant where they do strictly steaks, cash only place, and one steak can feed 4 people.
Right,
These are like almost like the meccas for the foodies.
right.
But the guy I remember most vividly, the founding fathers of what is now the Cooking Network and the Food Network, is a guy that went by Mr. Food, and his tagline was "Ooh, it's so good." And I know he would have a smaller, like a vignette, almost what you would consider to be like a Vine today. He would just do a few things that would be part of the news.
Right.
But I remember, the kids would be rambunctious, and my mother would say, "Oh, be quiet for a couple minutes. Mr. Food's on." And he'd go through almost like a simpler recipe. He wasn't doing duck confit or anything like that.
Right.
Well, we're going to take a break here because we have a lot of bigger names, a lot more up-to-date shows to talk about. We're going to leave here with 30 Silver. The name of the song is Goat. You're listening to My Night Out Radio. We'll be back in a minute.